dried fruits and nuts is something that are something. Hello, my historical fashion friends, or should I say historical food friends, because this is part of a new series I'm doing, which would be what would a vegan eat in insert time period here. So this is to go along with my other video, which I did outside. I don't know if you guys could see, but my soup is like actually boiling. I've never gotten anything over the fire to boil before. However, this one I'm going to be doing inside, and probably a lot of these videos will take place inside because the place where I use the campfire is not my actual house, neither is this. But I thought it'd be fun to see kind of what could you eat as a reenactor from recipes or food items that were available in different historical time periods, because I know a lot of people now are vegan, probably weren't then, but if you want to go and do some reenactment or you want to experience history, it can be kind of difficult to know, what can I take part in? What can I use? And so I thought this might be a little bit of a helpful series. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a breakfast food. I suppose you could eat it any time of day, but now we would definitely consider it a breakfast food, and it's a food which is probably familiar to most of you, which is oatmeal. Oats are available in Europe, and it is a super simple food item to make and take with you, transport to events, or just make at home, and you probably have the ingredients, at least some or most of them, already in your pantry. Another thing that you might find surprising about this recipe is that we're going to be using almond milk. And I know a lot of people think of alternative milks. Alternative milk! I spent 90% of the time editing this video making that alternative milk picture, and it was totally worth it. I thought about using a generative AI thing, and then I was like, no, I'm against that. Real art. And what I made was even more unhinged. So enjoy. As sort of a new age kind of modern thing, but almond milk is actually a really old recipe that a lot of cultures used when they didn't have access to milk. So we will be using almond milk, and that makes it a very vegan friendly recipe. To go along with our oats, we will be using some dried currants and walnuts, but you can basically use any dried fruit or nuts. Dried fruits and nuts are something that would be easy to take with you if you were traveling, and also easy to store throughout the winter to keep these food items long term. So you can use whatever is available to you in your area. There are definitely certain things that were more prevalent throughout Europe. For example, they probably didn't have cranberries, but cranberries are very popular in North America. So if you're in North America, you might have those, or blueberries. Whereas you might be more used to seeing cherries or currants or other types of fruits that are more common in Europe. If you were trying to do that reenactment, you can definitely look up other fruit items that would have been dried and easily available at the time. I will also be using walnuts. You can use almonds or any type of nut that would have been available or that you fancy. So I'm just going to turn my stove onto medium heat, and I will add a little bit of water, so let me get that. And I feel like you could see my cord, but let's see if I can put it down somewhere. This is my lav mic. So I'm going to add my almond milk. This is probably about a cup of almond milk. And then I'm also going to add about the same amount of water. And I'm just going to let that get warm. Now, I found this recipe on one of these Viking museum sites, but of course you can always change and adapt a recipe, because I'm sure that, like we do now, if you don't have ingredients or you have a little bit more or less of something, people adapt to what they have. They're not saying, I just don't have half a cup of almond milk, so I guess I'll starve today. I mean, you could definitely just use water. I think that the almond milk will make it taste a little better, so I'll be using that today. But if you didn't have that, you could also just use water. And I'm not that hungry this morning, so I'm just going to be having about a cup of oats mixed with some dried currants and dried walnuts. This is such a cute container. It's kind of more 18th century, but I found it at the thrift store, and it's the closest thing that I have to something that might look period accurate. Also, ignore these. These are just some squash apple muffins I made for later for my family. So, you can also optionally add a sweetener. While processed sugar wasn't really available to our Viking or early medieval friends, you can use something like honey, which was available. Or what I'll be using today, since I don't eat honey, is maple syrup, which is native to North America, which is where I live. And I think it's kind of fun to adapt recipes to make them kind of reflect the native foods that are available wherever you live. I have a very short spoon. We can also add a little bit of salt if we want for flavor. So now our almond milk and water is simmering. I will put in our oats and currants and walnuts. Now, I'm not exactly sure if they would have waited until it was simmering or just put it in from the beginning, so I kind of just made a decision. And I'm going to stir it and let it cook for about 5 to 10 minutes until you can see that the oats are swelled up and kind of absorbed the liquid. Okay, it's been about, I would say, 7 minutes, and our oats are done cooking, so it is time to put it in our little container and let it set for just a few minutes, and then we'll top it with our maple syrup. Okay, so let's give our oatmeal a try. We will add some of our maple syrup. And let's see, I'll mix it around. Let's see if I can get walnut and currant in here. That's good. It ended up tasting predominantly like maple syrup, just because that's the flavor I added, and oatmeal kind of has a neutral flavor. Walnuts are pretty good. In general, I don't like walnuts that much. Although a friend of mine showed me that she soaks her walnuts, her dried walnuts and dried almonds before she eats them fresh, and that seems to improve the flavor. And I think they're alright. Generally, I like oatmeal anyway, although I prefer kind of the quick oats version because it gets a little more like a mushy texture than like individual oat pieces. I think if you cooked these regular oats for a really long time, they would probably end up like that. But it's definitely tasty, and it would certainly be filling were I to need a lot of energy for the day as a traveler. Yeah, I imagine if you sweetened this with honey, it would kind of end up the same as tasting mostly like honey. So if you like a sweet breakfast, this is definitely a good option. I suppose you could also make it savory if you added like butter and herbs. I think that would be kind of a good savory option. I think for breakfast also, those sort of like little bread things I made the other night would also be a good option. Yeah, they could definitely be a good breakfast, especially if you were kind of traveling and you needed to eat on the go. It's kind of like a granola bar, you know. Anyway, I'm gonna finish eating this. If you like cooking videos, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll make some more videos like this. And if you like other historical type videos, please like and subscribe, and I will be back with much, much more. See you next time. I think the best thing about this pot is that you can just like put this tiny lid on and then save it for later. So if you weren't super hungry right now, you just be like, oh, I'll just go do something and come back and have a little more. Yeah. Medieval Tupperware. I guess 18th century. I'm pretty sure this is more of an 18th century design. Anyway. Well, I'm not wearing my hose today because we've had a little accident. The cat broke into the bathroom and stole this piece of hose and did a little chomp chomp. So we need to do some repairs here. I'll have to patch that. He does love to eat wool. Yes, he does.